It was a long college football offseason. I mean, there was a lot that went down, so I don't blame you one bit if you don't remember a whole lot from this offseason. It's okay because personally, I don't remember a whole lot as well. The transfer portal went absolutely crazy, and there were a lot of players who transferred to new programs, especially quarterbacks. Today, we're going to be taking a look back at the biggest names from the portal who transferred and where they ended up, in case you forgot any of these names. Before we get to today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Also, this list isn't in any particular order. These aren't like the best quarterbacks and where they transferred ranked. These are just the quarterbacks that I jotted down, basically the ones that I remembered the most off the top of my head. We'll start with Dylan Gabriel, who transferred to Oregon, with Bo Nix leaving for the NFL. This is going to be Dylan Gabriel's 6th collegiate season, and this is going to be his 3rd program. Technically his 4th if you want to count that UCLA stint. During his career, Gabriel has been one of the better quarterbacks in all of college football. For his career, he's thrown for 15,000 yards with 125 passing touchdowns. He's also added over 1,000 yards on the ground with 26 rushing scores as well. He's had a lot of really good seasons, but you can make the case that last year with Oklahoma was by far his best when he threw for 3,700 yards with 30 passing touchdowns and 12 rushing touchdowns. We saw what Bo Nix was able to turn to after he transferred from Auburn, so seeing what Dylan Gabriel is able to do at Oregon is going to be really exciting. We're also going to quickly stay at Oregon because they had a 2nd quarterback transfer in former UCLA quarterback Dante Moore. This one was pretty interesting considering Dante Moore was one of the highest rated quarterbacks of his class, and many people thought he was going to end up at a different program, but overall I think this is pretty smart. Transfer to Oregon, where they've developed quarterbacks really nicely over the last decade, sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year, and then in 2025, you get your opportunity to be the Duck starting quarterback. After spending time in Incarnate Ward and the last 2 seasons at Washington State, Cameron Ward transferred to Miami this offseason. He was really solid for the Cougars the last 2 seasons as he threw for 7,000 yards with 48 passing touchdowns. He also added 13 touchdowns on the ground as well. This past season was by far his best as he threw for 3,700 yards with 25 passing touchdowns. Miami has lacked a really good quarterback over the last couple of seasons, so it's going to be fun to see how they look with a big quarterback upgrade. After an okay career at Kansas State, Will Howard transferred to Ohio State, where he's going to be their main guy. This I thought was a really interesting one because we knew Ohio State had a quarterback job opening up, but I thought they personally could have done a lot better than Will Howard. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying Will Howard isn't the guy, but you're Ohio State. You couldn't have done any better. Now, maybe because Will Howard was at Kansas State, his numbers aren't as good as they probably should have been, but still overall, I think they're pretty underwhelming. During his 4-year career with the Wildcats, he completed only 59% of his passes, throwing for 5,800 yards with 48 passing touchdowns and 25 interceptions. Now, he did add 1,000 yards on the ground with 19 rushing scores, so he's a great dual threat quarterback. Again, he might prove me wrong and be a potential Heisman candidate, but I thought this was a really underwhelming move for the Buckeyes. Speaking of Ohio State, their quarterback job opened up because their starting quarterback from last season transferred to Syracuse, and that's Kyle McCord. In his first season as the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes, he threw for 3,200 yards with 24 passing touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. Not a bad season by any means, but we've seen some really good quarterback play from Ohio State quarterbacks over the last decade, so it was actually a really underwhelming season by their standards. Also, if you watched Ohio State games, you probably would have picked up that Kyle McCord wasn't all that good, so it made sense for him to get an opportunity somewhere else. I know Syracuse isn't necessarily a sexy name and there aren't that many expectations, but a lot of people are really high on this orange team for 2024, so Kyle McCord could make a name for himself with Syracuse. It feels like every season now, Notre Dame brings in a new quarterback, and 2024 isn't going to be a different story. They brought in former Duke quarterback Riley Leonard. Now, when Riley Leonard is on the field, he looks like one of the better quarterbacks in all of college football. The issue is he hasn't necessarily been all that healthy. He appeared in only 7 games last season for Duke, and his numbers weren't good at all. but he was dealing with numerous injuries. When we saw him last for a full season in 2022, he looked fantastic. He threw for 3,000 yards with 20 passing touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, while also adding 700 yards on the ground and 13 rushing scores. If Notre Dame is getting that version of Riley Leonard, they are easily going to be one of the top 8 teams in all of college football. A couple of seasons ago, Tyler Van Dyke was looking like one of the up-and-coming quarterbacks in all of college football. Entering the 2022 season, I had him as one of my Heisman picks for Miami. But after that dream 2021 season, things just didn't go well for Van Dyke in Miami. He broke out onto the scene in 2021, where he threw for 3,000 yards, having 25 passing touchdowns and 6 interceptions in only 10 games. But over the last 2 seasons for the Hurricanes, things were entirely different. He appeared in 20 games, throwing only 29 passing touchdowns with 17 interceptions. He dealt with injuries, but when he was on the field, he just didn't look like the same quarterback we saw back in 2021 when he took the college football world by storm. He heads to Wisconsin now, a team that isn't necessarily known for having good quarterbacks the last couple of years, so we'll see how he does with a brand new program. After spending 5 seasons at Arkansas, KJ Jefferson transferred to UCF. It really looked like Jefferson was primed to become one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, but he just never made it to that next level. He had really good seasons in 2021 and 2022, but in 2023, he took a major backseat. He threw for only 2,100 yards with 19 passing touchdowns, both of those marks being the lowest of his career as the starting quarterback for Arkansas. He also didn't do as much damage on the ground as well, as he ran for under 500 yards with only 2 rushing scores. Now, he has shown flashes of being a really good quarterback, and he did it while playing in the SEC, so maybe at UCF he'll be able to tap back into that. Speaking of Arkansas, their new quarterback is going to be former Boise State quarterback Taylon Green. He appeared in 26 games for the Broncos over the last 2 seasons, throwing for just under 4,000 yards with 25 passing touchdowns. He's also added over 1,000 yards on the ground with 19 rushing scores as well. He's a great dual threat quarterback, so it's going to be interesting to see how he looks making the jump from the Mountain West all the way up to the SEC. Oregon State lost their conference, and they also lost their 2 quarterbacks as well. We'll start with their starter from last year in DJ Uiagalelei. It feels like he's been around forever, and well, it's because he has been. He made his debut all the way back in 2020, and this is going to be his 3rd new program and his 3rd program over the last 3 years. After a disappointing end to his time at Clemson, he threw for 2,600 yards last season with the Beavers. He had 21 passing touchdowns with only 7 interceptions. He also added 200 yards on the ground with 6 rushing scores. He's been a really solid quarterback during his collegiate career, but he hasn't quite met the expectations that he set for himself when he was a top recruit, and he looked really damn good in that 2020 season. But maybe going to Florida State, he'll finally be able to meet those expectations and be that Heisman caliber quarterback that many teams have been searching for. The other quarterback that Oregon State lost was Aiden Charles, who transferred to Michigan State. We didn't see too much of him on the field last year, as he attempted only 35 passes. But when he was on the field, he looked like the real deal, and there was a lot of excitement for him and his future with Oregon State. Unfortunately, the Beavers don't get to see what that future looks like, and instead the Spartans do. And I think there's a real chance that at the end of the college football season, when we're taking a look back at all the quarterbacks that transferred, Aiden Charles might be at the top of the list of the best performing quarterbacks. Grayson McCall had a great time at Coastal Carolina, as he put up some really solid numbers there, but after 5 seasons with the Chanticleers, he transferred to NC State. He broke out onto the scene in 2020, where he emerged as one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. From 2020 through 2022, he was one of the best quarterbacks out there, but in 2023, his numbers took a hit, and he missed half the season with injuries. Still, he's had quite the career, as he's completed 70% of his passes while throwing for 10,000 yards with 88 passing touchdowns. He's also rushed for over 1,100 yards with 18 rushing scores. Not many quarterbacks out there in college football currently can say they have those numbers. NC State's been shuffling quarterbacks the last couple of years, but there's a strong chance that Grayson McCall might be the best they've had in quite some time. Now, if you want to talk about quarterbacks being around for quite some time, we have our winner. Tyler Shough enters the 2024 season as Louisville's starting quarterback. He spent 3 seasons at Texas Tech and 3 seasons at Oregon. That's right, he was taking snaps for the Ducks all the way back in 2018. Hell, I was still in college all the way back in 2018. This is going to be Shuck's 7th season and his 3rd program, but he has a chance to have the best season of his career. Although he's played in a number of games, we haven't really seen a great season from Tyler Shuck. He appeared in only 4 games this past season for Texas Tech, and his career high for games appeared in a season is only 7. He's thrown for 4,600 yards and has 36 passing touchdowns, but we've never seen what he can do over the course of a full season. We've seen bits and pieces here and there, and we've seen him look really good, but he always gets hurt with some freak injury. If he's able to stay healthy for Louisville in 2024, who knows, he could be that quarterback that can lead them to an ACC title. With Duke losing their starting quarterback, they brought in former Texas quarterback Malik Murphy. He appeared in only 7 games last season, attempting only 71 passes, so we didn't really get a big look at Murphy. But the talent is clearly there, and I think this is a really big addition for Duke. After lighting up the stat sheet during his time in Mississippi State, Will Rogers transferred to Washington. Now, this isn't going to be the same Washington team that we saw last year that had an amazing offense, but I still think they could be a really solid team. Will Rogers comes in with a lot of experience as he's thrown for over 12,000 yards with 94 passing touchdowns in his career. I mean, he had a season in 2021 where he threw for nearly 5,000 yards and had 36 passing touchdowns. He then followed that season up by throwing for 4,000 yards with 35 touchdowns. He appeared in only 8 games last year, and Mississippi State was kind of a mess, so him getting a fresh start at Washington could be good for him. Well, those are some of the biggest names who transferred this offseason. Which quarterback transfer do you think is going to make the biggest impact at their new school? Also, was there a quarterback transfer that didn't make the cut in today's video? I'm sure there are 10 to 15 that are going to be really solid next year at their new program, but I just didn't have enough time to include 25 names. So whichever quarterback you think is going to look great at their new school, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. The college football season is almost here, and I'm going to be posting every day during the season. So if you're a college football fan, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that confusing YouTube algorithm, and it helps share the video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all in my next video.